Welcome back to Flat Notes, Sharp Minds. We are Alex and Kyle, the podcast where we explore the minds that shaped modern psychology, dig into some music, have some fun. Today we're diving into the life and work of Erik Erickson, pioneer of the human development and identity theory. He was originally born in Germany, 1902. First birth name was actually Erik Solomonson. Hope I'm saying that right. Raised by his
Weird.
mother, abandoned by his father, and later develop's not the right word, but he took on his stepfather's name of Hamburg and finally settled on Erik Erickson, which many believe was a symbolic theme of his lifelong interest in identity. Actually
Hmm.
never went to a traditional college degree for psychology. He just lived it all.
Weird. Interesting. I know he has a his own college called the Erickson Institute. Um, but interesting that he has a college, but he didn't go to college.
Yeah.
Weird. So, let's talk a little about his path to psychology. So, uh, Eric initially pursued art and traveled through Europe as a portrait artist, actually. He had later became a teacher at an experimental school over in Vienna. Um, and actually, that's where he met Anne Freud, which is Sigmund Freud's daughter, who encouraged him to train in psychoanalysis. He later then emigrated to the US in the 1930s to escape the rise of Nazism. Honestly, he's kind of like, that's a good reason to emigrate. So good on you, Eric.
Yeah.
Uh, and he actually worked in several prestigious institutions, just to name a couple, like Harvard, Yale, UC Berkeley. Um, And Erickson was actually particularly interested in how identity forms over a lifetime and not just in childhood.
Wow. What a life. And that is quite amusing. The he worked with all these colleges and institutes, but never actually
Yeah, no,
a
right?
student.
Yeah, no.
But I mean, jumping right into his biggest ideology theory was he really focused and created these 8 stages of psychosocial development, each stage contributing something to the person themselves, but focusing a lot on like the social dynamics more than anything else. And each stage covering roughly anywhere from 1 year to 30 plus, depending on each stage. But the first five happen all really quickly, that 0 to 18. So, in order from infancy onward, the first stage, the trust versus mistrust,
Mm,
this concept of if the child is not getting what they need, then they are lacking that trust. And if they do, they were getting that, building that trust. And we're just going to do lightning around for a second. Number
yeah,
two,
go for it.
second stage, toddler, um, this autonomy versus like shame and doubt. Can I do things by myself? Or am I like really reliant on others? Am I leaning too much on people? Can I
I
do
feel
things
that way
on my own?
sometimes.
That's fair. Sometimes it's nice to have somebody just tell me what to do and I don't have to use my brain.
Yeah, yeah.
But come on, that's no fun, right? The third stage, roughly preschool age, this um, initiative versus guilt. Am I good or bad at making decisions? So this like thought of the like they're making these decisions, are they being and while they're like exploring the world, are they like being encouraged to like try things and see, or are they getting this like smack down guilty feeling for like making decisions, even though they may not know whether they're good or bad yet just because they're so young. Moving right along into the elementary school age, this industry versus inferiority, a lot of comparing themselves to others. And that can be really difficult just in the fact that it's hard not to. When you see all these people every
Yeah,
day, it's
yeah.
kind of hard not to compare yourself, but kind of creating that sense of self and knowing that like we're all completely different people trying to build that in that elementary age
hmm
so that they're not so reliant and just like crushed by not having or not being like somebody else. And the young young adult, or I guess young adult, sorry, is technically the next stage. This adolescence, this like late middle school, high school era, this identity versus role confusion. This is where we start to kind of establish who they are. Who am I? Where am I going in life? What do I want to do? Really helping lead the student to try and find what they like, what they enjoy, what they're good at, and kind of honing on those skills to lead them into young adult, the sixth stage. This is intimacy versus isolation. And this is all now more personal in the fact that it's building relationships. This is a lot of like one-on-one relationships, very focused on that person-to-person connection. And then middle adult, so this is 30s to 60s. Um, generat generativity or stagnation? Am I contributing to the world, or am I kind of like stuck in just this self-absorbed bubble? Finally ending with late adults, so this is 60s and on, this integrity versus despair. Did I live a meaningful life? Did I contribute or not? And how do I reconcile that? These these stages are I try not to mention too many numbers only because they are so dependent on the person and can be somewhat
hmm
nebulous, but those are the main 8 stages in a super quick lightning round version
Yeah.
for what he did.
I find it really interesting whenever we look at these questions in the stages about how I as an adult or I as a young adult, should I say, ask these questions of myself. Like, am I making good or bad decisions? I think that a lot of the time. Uh, am I competent compared to others? Like, that's something that I like always think about in myself. Or where am I going? I think that's another really big thing. And so it's really interesting to read the list of what each stage kind of like generalizes into a single question and how much I think about these questions as like a young adult, right? It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like to think that like as an infant, like everything can be described as like, can I trust the world? Right? And that's something that I think about. Like when I go on trips, it's like, man, can I trust people? Is that like
Yeah.
is that like okay to do, or do I just keep to myself, right? And
Yeah.
then that later goes on into like when you get into like late adulthood, the integrity versus despair and like to have a meaningful life, right? Like did I like contribute to society? And it's almost like all of these questions stack like one another, right? And it's like this like logical staircase where it's like, oh, well, the further up I go, the more I can look back and like assess where I am with these questions. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, one thing is that I thought of is the comparison and being able to compare like you're playing to somebody else without it lessening where you are in your abilities, being able to be
hmm
like my example is there's a bassoonist. And my whole goal as I was learning was to try and emulate his sound. So comparing in a positive way, like this is what I want to be, instead
Yep.
of listening and
Yeah.
comparing and be like, oh my God, I'll
Like
never be good
I'm never
enough.
gonna get there.
Yeah, just breaking like that. Comparison can be a good thing, just how you
Hmm.
go about it.
Which is great because that ties directly into having a fixed versus a growth mindset. So good job, Kyle, for pointing that out. And actually, this goes great into the next segment, which is key concepts and legacy. So, Erik Erickson, he kind of like coined the term identity crisis. And so that describing like the internal conflict we have during adolescence as individuals while we're forming identity. Um, he also believed that culture and society play a vital role in shaping psychological development, which is another shift from Freud's inner focus. Super cool that like you just see this like it's just like crossing of paths, right? Which is wild. And then going into he actually published a book called Childhood and Society in 1950, and that was considered one of his cornerstone works in developmental psychology. Um, it's just really crazy. And like another weird fact about him is that he wrote influential like psychohistorical works on Gandhi and Martin Luther. Like who who would do that?
Yeah.
And to think that he did it, and it's like, I mean, I yeah, sure. I it's just wild. I don't know. Like doing all of his things, he's like Gandhi, Martin Luther. They deserve
Yeah.
psychohistorical writings, right?
I mean, big influential people. It's no wonder people
Yeah.
study them.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, these studies of these famous people probably helped into just his general ideas of how people can become these huge influential people, whereas just
Hmm.
some don't and kind of just fall into obscurity. But like that's kind of why these studies really matter. They're these theories that he's created, used in so many different places, education, counseling, parenting, even into like trainings for businesses. These just trying to really establish these core identities and help address issues if needed and help people get to the point where they trust if they never had that trust growing up. And this model helps us really understand why people struggle at certain life stages and gives us some ideas of potential ways to support them, help them go through the stage, or if they're already past that stage, addressing the issues that that stage maybe had so that they can move on. Because the whole concept, like you were saying, Alex, is like that it does kind of go into each other. Each stage kind of grows into the next. So if
Hmm.
there's any hiccup along the way, that can really throw off every other stage after it. And really trying to just build these views that we can become and grow and develop and be the people that are just really great, well-rounded, awesome people.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so honestly, I think this is a good time uh to say all this. Like, so whether you're facing your own identity questions, like trying to mentor young people or like students as an educator, um, or you're just like fascinated by human behavior, Erickson has a great social psychological model that we can like look to. And so, and tying this back into like, if you're an educator, uh, I just want to challenge you and to consider this your invitation to kind of dig deeper. And so here's a couple questions that I want to pose to you. So give yourself time and reflect on where your students are in Erickson's stage. Are they building trust, forming identity, seeking purpose? And how can your classroom support not just academic growth, but developmental growth? Your awareness of their psychological needs can make all the difference. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So thank you for tuning into Flat Notes, Sharp Minds. If you enjoyed this episode, follow us on YouTube. We have a TikTok. We just made our LinkedIn, so please follow us on that. And next week we're gonna follow up with somebody else really cool. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. This is
Yeah.
Kyle and Alex.
If you want to dig any deeper, you can check out simplypsychology.org to go into the stages. And if you just want to know more about Erickson and the Erickson Institutes, you can check out erickson.edu, and that can take you to some more information there. Have a great week.
See ya.